It's Zaza time.
Yeah, Zaza! Pokemon's getting lit!
So, yeah, we just had the latest Pokemon Presents, and it was pretty interesting. So, Demeech and I are going to discuss it with the things that they announced, as well as things that they should have announced that was disappointing that wasn't there. But before we get started, I wanted to mention that I have the goal to hit 30,000 subscribers before the Switch 2 launches, so if you enjoy my content, consider subscribing, and if I hit that goal, I will give away a copy of the new Mario Kart game. But yeah, the Pokemon Presents was kinda interesting, and I feel like a lot of the things shown weren't necessarily exciting, just in my opinion. But the first thing that they showed was Pokémon Champions. And at first, I was pretty excited. It kind of looks like a spiritual successor to Pokémon Stadium, and I think that's what they're going for, since they did show Pokémon Stadium in the trailer. But then they revealed that it was also a mobile game, alongside being on Nintendo Switch. And that's kind of what turned it off for me, because it's really going to be limited because of the fact that it's also going to be a mobile game.
You guys not have phones? Yeah, you guys all have phones, right? Oh, wow. See, the thing with Pokemon Presents is, since today is Pokemon Day, it's been a tradition at this point. And usually with Pokemon Presents, I always find them great if I ever am having a bad sleep schedule, because usually they put me right to sleep. But with this one in particular, it's exactly what I expected. And starting off with Pokémon Champions, it's their new mobile game that's also a Switch game. So something similar to Pokemon Unite in that sense, where it's cross-release. And with the mobile stuff, which exactly are you worried about? Are you worried about the technical aspect, or things like it being free to play?
Kind of both, actually, because I know, like, on one hand, like, it's probably, I know we saw, like, a couple screenshots of it, but I know it probably is going to be pretty limiting, because it will have to fit in with the specs of, like, phones and things. But at the same time, like, the free-to-play aspect kind of turns me off a little bit. I mean, they did show, like, in, like, the footage and as well as the information that we got, that you can transfer Pokemon into it from Pokemon Home, which I do think is interesting, but at the same time, I'd rather have a full, fleshed-out experience, which free-to-play games usually don't offer. So, I feel like it probably is going to be pretty limiting in that aspect. So, that's why I'm kind of disappointed that they made this a mobile game. It just would have been so much more interesting if they made this into like a full, fleshed out, like, Pokemon spin-off. And that's just kind of my problem with, like, Pokemon spin-offs lately. It really seems like they're catering mostly to the mobile audience because of Pokemon Go. I feel like ever since Pokemon Go, most things have been kind of switched over to mobile. Like, I remember, like, back during the Wii and DS era, or, like, the 3DS era, we got a lot of Pokemon spin-offs, like Poke Park on the Wii, Battle Revolution, and then on the GameCube we got, Pokemon Coliseum and XD Gale of Darkness, Pokemon Ranger, Mystery Dungeon. I know we got a remake of Mystery Dungeon on Switch, but we haven't seen anything since the remake. So it really doesn't seem like there is much lately in terms of Pokemon spin-offs that aren't just mobile games. Like, there's a lot of things that we have been kind of missing out on lately on the Switch. I think it's really disappointing.
I think so too. When you brought up the mobile thing, I can relate that to the Mario series, since we're definitely more Mario fans than Pokemon fans. And it's like how New Super Mario Bros. Influenced the series after it released. After New Super Mario Bros. Released, the entire Mario series became more play it safe, more sterilized, and also generic. You saw a lot of games, especially the RPGs, take inspiration from New Super Mario Bros., and the games just lost their creativity and charm. And that's exactly what Pokemon Go did, but not in the sense of the series becoming generic, but in the sense where the influence is having a lot of these spin-offs, and just games in general, be mobile games. I'm sure if Game Freak wanted to, they would just have all Pokemon games be mobile. All the mainline games, stuff like that. And I'm honestly surprised it hasn't gotten to that point yet.
Yeah.
Now with Pokemon Champions, I don't have much of an opinion about it because I avoid those games with the 10-foot pole. Pokemon Unite especially. It could be cool, it could be bad, but I'm sure it's going to have some of the microtransactions and aspects of free-to-play games that I just don't find appealing.
Yeah.
So this is one I'm not really interested in.
Yeah, I just, like, and another thing with, like, the fact that Pokemon relies so heavily on mobile games, I feel like it's just a huge contrast from, like, other Nintendo-related things. And it's just kind of interesting, since Pokemon is partially owned by Nintendo, it's just so weird to see, because it seems like something that Nintendo would never do. Like, with just having so much presence with mobile, I think it just contrasts just so much. So I think it's just weird that, like, it's just still something that Nintendo has a stake in, technically. Because it's
What's interesting... Yeah, what's interesting about it is that all of Nintendo's mobile games are either on their way out, or they're pretty much gone. The only ones left, I think Mario Kart Tour, Fire Emblem Heroes, and Super Mario Run.
Yeah.
And they're done with content for Mario Kart Tour, so Nintendo just tried that and they're like, nope, we're just going to continue making console games. But with Pokemon, Pokemon's like that relative that is related to you, but just does their own thing. They're just so distant from the family. It's like that with Pokemon and Nintendo, where they just operate drastically differently. And mobile is an aspect that Pokemon definitely likes to get into.
Yeah. But now that we've talked about Pokemon Champions, and just, like, how that's kind of being handled weirdly, we're now gonna talk about the main event. The thing we've waited 3,000 years for. Pokémon Legends Z-A. We finally saw it, and it looks... it looks exactly...
It's a coping mechanism.
It looks exactly... it looks exactly how I thought it would look. Like, I'm not particularly impressed, nor am I disappointed, because this is kind of what I expected, like, a new Pokemon game to look like. It doesn't look as bad as Scarlet and Violet, but it doesn't look great either. Just kind of looks a little underwhelming. Like, it's really not something that I'm interested in, just because it kind of looks a little subpar. I would say the screenshots on the website do look better, and I think there is potential, if this is going to be on the Switch too, that it could be more optimized and more interesting. And I do think some of the mechanics look pretty cool, like the fact that there is, like, real-time mechanics in battle that kind of function a little bit like Xenoblade. But at the same time, I've just been burned too many times by Pokemon. Sword and Shield, I was disappointed. Legends Arceus, I did like. That was the one exception. But then Scarlet and Violet, that just really turned me off from Pokemon for quite a while, and is just the reason why I'm just kind of hesitant about getting into this game. And it's just really why I'm just kind of like, I don't know. It's like, I really don't trust Game Freak that much because of Scarlet and Violet, because at first, I know the cracks were already showing. I know, like, we've already saw that it kind of looked underwhelming with Scarlet and Violet back when it was first revealed, but I initially gave it the benefit of the doubt, and then was just really let down by it. So I don't know. I don't want to be let down again by Legends Z-A. So I really don't have, like, that strong feelings about this. But how do you feel about Z-A?
How do I feel about Z-A? Well, the question is, what Z-A are we talking about? No, I know exactly what kind of Z-A you're talking about. So the thing with Pokemon Legends Z-A, it was revealed last year, we didn't get any gameplay footage. My stance on Pokemon is I've just been completely burned with the series. We had Pokemon Sword and Shield, then Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, and then Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. All three of those games are absolute doo-doo. For different
Yeah.
reasons, sure. But still, when I mentioned how Mario became generic, yeah, the games did lack personality, but at the very least they were still fun and functional games. But the Pokemon series has just been so bad recently that I've just become completely apathetic towards it.
Yeah.
And with Pokemon Legends Z-A, I saw the trailer, and I'm looking at it, and I'm like, hey, this doesn't look half bad. But it also doesn't look particularly good.
Yeah.
I'm mainly talking about the graphical aspect. I will say, Legends Arceus, it doesn't have the best graphics, but at least it had some sort of style going for it.
Yeah.
It kind of looks similar to Breath of the Wild and Okami, but this one just looks like Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, but actually polished. I don't even want to know how much development time Pokemon Scarlet and Violet got after looking at this. Because
Yeah.
even with the increased development time, and sure the game isn't out yet, but still, this is kind of probably what the game's going to look like.
Yeah.
It's not impressive. It just looks okay.
Yeah.
It's very passable.
Yeah, I just like while it looks just fine and decent at the most part, I mean, like, when are we, like, it just seems like we're never gonna get that Pokemon game that truly looks impressive. It's like, they don't have the development time for it. Like, I mean, I might be sounding a bit nitpicky here, but, like, it's been, like, 7 to 8 years since they've been releasing Pokemon games on an HD console, and we really haven't had that big breakthrough yet. It's just, like, it just looks decent at best. It's like, I don't know. It's like, I feel like just after all of these years, it's really not all that impressive. Like, just after we've seen, like, so many Switch games that look a lot better, and the fact that we're getting the Switch 2 likely before this even releases, which is gonna have, like, some really good looking games, like Mario Kart 9 we've seen already, so, like, yeah, I don't know. One thing that I'm hoping about, like, the visuals for this game is that it has, like, some sort of upgrade in mind for the Switch 2. Like, we've already seen the screenshots that do look like a step better than the trailer, so I don't know if it has to do with that, but, like, yeah, at this point, I don't really think it, like you said, I'm not really, like, too impressed by it, nor do I am really disappointed or, like, care too much about it.
I mean, the thing is, if Scarlet and Violet didn't happen, and then we saw this game, I would have thought, okay, maybe the graphics could look a lot better, and they can, but at the same time, Scarlet and Violet just looks so bad that this looks amazing in comparison.
Yeah.
Even though they look very similar.
Yeah.
And I'll just go out and say, I think that Pokemon Scarlet and Violet are worse than Sword and Shield.
Oh, I
Sword and
agree.
Shield, what those games are, they're pretty much crappy versions of Pokemon Sun and Moon with a British theme. They're lesser versions of those games because they don't have as much content, there's not as much creativity, and overall, they just failed because they're just safe Pokemon games, very by the books, and they sacrificed a lot, like the GTS and the National Dex. And with the Forced Experience Share, that just kind of ruins a major aspect of the game for me. And although it might not for other players, it would be nice to have the option to turn off Experience Share.
Yeah.
Because they had it available in Gen 6 and Gen 7. I don't know why they needed to do it for Gen 8. And then with Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, yes, it was ambitious, it was trying something new. If it had probably like 3 more years of development at least, it could have been the Breath of the Wild that Pokemon needs, but still, the way it turned out is just catastrophic.
Yeah, the thing is, like,
and that's why I'm just so apathetic towards Pokemon now. I kind of expected it to be bad, because you just can't have 2 open world games in the same year without one of them turning out to be just terrible.
Yeah,
that just doesn't make sense.
Scarlet and Violet's problems go beyond the graphics and different things. Like the lack of level scaling just, like, completely ruins the open world aspect for me. I feel like that really is like a genuine design flaw. And then also the state that it released in at launch was just very, very bad. So
It's
like,
still bad. They never really fixed it.
yeah. And like, despite Legends Z-A looking a lot better, I'm just still concerned that there will be some cracks in there, even if it's not, like, obvious graphically, because graphically it does look a lot better, but I'm just worried that, like, certain other aspects of the game won't be as polished. Even though it did get a little more development time, I'm worried that it's not enough, because I feel like Pokemon games, they really need a lot more development time than Game Freak has like been developing them for. They really need, I would say, at least 5 years of development time, I would say. Like, it's kind of crazy that Game Freak has pushed out, like, 5 games, including this one, during the Switch. Like, it's just kind of insane to think about. Like, all just big, fully fleshed out games. Just so many of them are so, like, unpolished and just really unfinished. I mean, incomplete, sorry. But, like...
It's not unfinished, it's just incomplete.
But it just feels like these games... Like, honestly, I feel like there really only should have been, like, two big Pokemon games on the Switch from Game Freak. Like, releasing, like, 5 or 6 years apart. That should have been the ideal scenario here. It is unsustainable to have HD development be within only 3 to 4 years. Like, that is real. Like, for a game like other Nintendo games, or I guess other Nintendo Switch games, like Mario Party, like, that also takes around 3 years to develop, but that's a much smaller scaled game. It makes sense to only take 3 years to develop. But games like Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, those take like 6 to 7 years to develop. And Scarlet and Violet was kind of pushing along that scale. And even like Legends Z-A, while it's not going to be as big as that from just what we've seen, it still seems like a game that seems like it would benefit from like 5 years of development time, honestly. Just from how it looks. In other Nintendo Switch games that kind of go for like a similar gameplay style.
I'm most concerned about the performance issues, because that was something that wasn't present with Pokemon Scarlet and Violet initially. Like, you could tell that the game was probably going to be rushed out, but the performance issues, I don't think anybody saw that coming.
Yeah.
Now, here's another thing. 2 things. When it comes to the performance issues, you remember how I said they were never patched out?
Yeah.
Well, when Anton Blast released on the Nintendo Switch, it did have performance issues. You want to know how long it took them to completely fix them to the point where the game is at a consistent 60 frames?
Just a couple weeks, right?
Yeah, it was just 2 weeks. And this is an indie development team.
Yeah.
Granted, Anton Blast is one of the best 2D platformers ever made. And the team is very talented, unlike Game Freak. But still, a multi-billion-dollar franchise can't fix their games? I'm getting on a tangent when it comes to Scarlet and Violet again, but just thinking about the prospect of having performance issues again, I'm not going to be surprised, but I'm just going to be at a loss for words.
Yeah. I think there is a smaller chance of a Scarlet and Violet situation happening for this game, but there still is the chance nonetheless, and I think it is fair to be concerned about that, given how like multiple other Pokemon games on the Switch have had performance issues. So I am just really, really hoping that this doesn't have like the performance issues that Scarlet and Violet has, because like you said, while it looks nicer, it could still possibly have some issues with performance. So I'm just really hoping it doesn't have problems in that way. But yeah, so I finally
before getting into that, I was just gonna say, since most of the game takes place in Lumiose City, how do you think that's gonna work? Because that's something I'm wondering about. Because with Pokemon games, they're known to have landscapes where you go out into the wild and catch Pokemon. But considering the city being the central location, I am wondering, they did show that they're going to have wild zones, but do you think it would be a good idea to have that be the core location for the entire game?
I actually, like seeing it in the trailer, I actually think it's pretty interesting. I think they probably could pull it off. Because, like, the wild zones do look pretty interesting, and I think one benefit to having, like, one big central location is the fact that things will probably look and perform better since they don't have to have a huge, sprawling open space, kind of like how Pokemon Scarlet and Violet had. Like, this will be a slightly more condensed area that they could work with. So I think just for the sake of, like, Game Freak, with their limited development time, honestly, this almost seems like a loophole that actually make a somewhat competent game within the time, like, the amount of development time that they have. So, like, even though it does seem pretty limiting, and I do wish they would have done, like, more than just, Lumiose City, I do think it is a good opportunity to have the game, like, be more polished. Just making that one sacrifice there of only being within one location. But I do think it is interesting. Weirdly, like, seeing, like, the wild zones with, like, where they're, like, catching the Pokemon, like, along a street, and there's, like, some grass around. It almost reminded me of Kirby and the Forgotten Land, in a way. Just, like, with how they're just, like, there's... I don't know. It just seemed kind of interesting. Like, I don't know, like, why it reminded me of that, because Kirby and the Forgotten Land is, like, abandoned, and this isn't necessarily abandoned, but it just kind of gave me those vibes for some reason. I don't know why.
It is interesting. I will give it that. It's a unique theme. And it could be cool. Some games can have one location and still make it interesting, like Bowser's Fury. We'll just have to wait and see. But overall, when it comes to Pokémon Legends Z-A, I'm glad that it's happening for at least one reason, and that's the name.
Yeah.
But other than that, game looks okay. It doesn't look horrible. It doesn't look great. I'd love to be proven wrong, but also at the same time, I'm not just, like, desperately waiting to be proven wrong. Because, like I said, I'm kind of apathetic towards Pokemon now.
Yeah,
But overall, I mean...
I feel a similar way.
It looks fun.
Yeah, I feel pretty similar to you. I'm probably not going to talk about this game again on the channel, unless there is any significant improvements or something that actually does look pretty interesting to me. But yeah. But finally, the last thing that we wanted to talk about the Pokemon Presents is the fact that there still aren't any classic Pokemon games on Nintendo Switch Online, like the mainline games, which is extremely disappointing. Like, we've had NSO for, like, almost, like, 7 years now, and we haven't had anything in, like, the Game Boy games since 2022, I believe, and we still haven't gotten them. It's just kind of crazy. Like, that they haven't brought them over yet. They brought them onto the 3DS, but we still haven't seen anything on the Switch. It's extremely disappointing, I would say, because there really aren't any official ways to play these games anymore, since the Virtual Console, like, that went down with, like, the 3DS eShop. So, and then also, like, there haven't been any, like, re-releases of, like, a lot of other Pokemon games, like, even on Virtual Console.
Yeah, Gen 3 has never been re-released. Here's the thing. They might do something. The only glimmer of hope, I would say, is next year for Pokemon's 30th anniversary. We might finally get them on Nintendo Switch Online or get a collection of them. I'm not surprised that we didn't get them. But I am wondering, do you think they're just waiting to do something where they'd package them all together for $60?
They might do that. I think, like, I don't know. They might also... I'm also thinking they might do something, like, kind of like how they released, like, I guess this is not the best comparison, because it's technically within the same service, but, like, Earthbound on Virtual Console, where they charged more for it. I think, like, instead of putting them on Nintendo Switch Online, they could, like, sell them on the eShop, like, individually, or they could put them in Nintendo Switch Online, but have you pay for them individually in Nintendo Switch Online, in the app, to access them. They might do something like that, honestly.
That would not be a good idea.
Yeah.
Nintendo isn't known for microtransactions or anything like that, so to have those in the Switch Online app, it wouldn't be a good image for Nintendo. I don't know, it's just weird because Switch Online's right there, but they still haven't included them.
Yeah.
At this point, though, how I feel about Nintendo Switch Online is that the output of games, even nowadays, it's so paltry and it's a drip feed that if I want to play a game, I just either have the game, or if you don't want to get into retro games, just get something like a Mii U Mini Plus, put the games on there, don't worry about Nintendo Switch Online.
Yeah, and sell the 7 Cs. But yeah, it's, I also wanted to mention that, like, if they do release the games individually, either on the eShop or have you pay for them separately, like, I mean, there is the chance that you will get access, or Nintendo will give you access to them permanently. Like, they can't remove it from you, like they are doing with Super Soccer.
All digital future, guys! You gotta love it.
But that is, like, the one reason why I hope they, like, might sell them individually. Like, you could just download it like a virtual console game and have it. But, yeah, I do hope they come to NSO, like, sometime in the future. But, yeah, that's about all we have to say about the Pokemon Presents. It was pretty much what we were expecting. Like, it was just a pretty mundane Pokemon Presents. Like, some mobile spin-off thing got announced. And Z-A, of course. So that it really felt pretty normal. Like you were saying, I feel like they don't even need to have Pokemon sleep. They already make them in presentation form.
It's funny because with Nintendo Directs, oftentimes you don't know what you're gonna get. But with Pokemon Presents, you're getting exactly what you expect.
Yeah.
And we got Z-A and certainly some Z-A.
You know...
But yeah, I mean...
You know,
it was disappointing we didn't get the classic games, but at the same time, nothing they showed off was particularly bad.
Yeah.
But not particularly exciting.
This is the one time where I was disappointed about a presentation not having a farming simulator. Because imagine if they had a Z-A farming simulator. It would be like,
and then they could use Rotoms as LED lights.
Yeah,
and then you could grow your crops.
Yeah, but the one thing is, it would become the whole identity of the series, and they'd make every game about it. They'd make the whole, like, theme of, and they'd never stop doing it.
Maybe it could come with a scratch and sniff card, so you could play the game in smell-o-vision, and it would smell like the streets of New York City.
Yeah.
That would really give it the name Pokemon Legends Z-A. Just go all out.
Yeah, just give Pokemon the modern South Park treatment. But yeah.
Oh!
Anyways.
That was a burn right there.
Anyways, thank you guys for watching this video. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe for more. And make sure to check out my Discord server and Blue Sky if you want to. Stay perky!
And keep calm and Z-A on.